Today, the latest Reuters Ipsos poll finds Americans souring over Donald Trump's handling of the economy and hardline approach to immigration. We'll look at the impacts of each on Trump's 100th day in office, and what we know so far about the cause of the massive blackout in Spain and Portugal. It's Wednesday, April 30th. This is Reuters World News, bringing you everything you need to know from the front lines in 10 minutes every weekday. I'm David Spencer in London.
And we're here tonight in the heartland of our nation to celebrate the most successful first 100 days of any administration.
US President Donald Trump marking the first 100 days of his second term at a rally in Michigan. He says his policies will lead to a resurgence in growth and domestic manufacturing. But Americans are not convinced. The latest Reuters Ipsos poll shows discontent is rising over Trump's handling of the economy, with his overall approval rating stuck at 42%. And the fallout from his trade war continues to reverberate. Hours before that rally in Michigan, Trump signed a pair of orders to soften the blow of his auto tariffs. And today, we'll find out how his trade policies are impacting growth when the government releases the first quarter GDP report. Here's US economics editor Dan Burns.
Well, at a minimum, growth during the first quarter is going to have slowed dramatically from where it was at the end of 2024. The view is it came to a near standstill in the first quarter particularly because of the math involved of huge imports and inventory builds as people sought to get ahead of the tariffs that were coming. But the latest trade deficit data that came out immediately before the GDP report has had economists scrambling to lower their estimates even further. So there's a reasonable chance that the economy contracted during the first quarter outright as a result.
So what is expected to happen next?
What economists think is coming next is all hinges on what happens over the next 3 weeks, 60 days or so, until this 90-day pause on the reciprocal tariffs expires in early July. There's real clamoring for certainty, for progress on deals, on meaningful deals, on credible deals with trading partners that give some certainty to the outlook, because the buzzword of the year has been uncertainty. It's been plaguing companies and households. It's been stymieing efforts to make decisions around investments and purchases. And until that uncertainty is lifted, any certainty around the outlook is really impossible to get your arms around.
Over on Wall Street, that lack of certainty is a major issue. Earnings reports from major companies are rolling in, but investors are not getting much in the way of forward guidance, as Carmel Crimmins explains.
Shares in tech companies Snap plunged in after-hours trading after it declined to issue a sales forecast. And General Motors and JetBlue both pulled their outlooks due to uncertainty over the economy. In fact, a whole host of airlines, including Delta and American, have all withdrawn their financial forecasts. Both tourists and corporations are sitting tight, leading to a pullback in travel spending. We're also starting to see the economic hits in other countries. China's factory activity contracted at the fastest pace in 16 months in April as Trump's tariffs kicked in.
A grand parade in Ho Chi Minh City, with thousands celebrating the 50th anniversary at the end of the Vietnam War. The celebrations featured Russian-made fighter jets and more than 100 Chinese troops marching alongside Vietnamese soldiers. A pair of reports on Harvard University show Jewish and Muslim students face bigotry and abuse on campus. The combined 500-pager was the result of 2 task forces set up by the university a year before Donald Trump took office. Harvard says it will do more to teach its students how to have productive and civil dialogue with people from different backgrounds. The power is back on in Spain and Portugal after one of Europe's biggest ever blackouts. But there are still no answers as to what actually caused it or how they could prevent it from happening again. Our Iberian co-bureau chief Aislinn Leng is looking at this story. Aislinn, what do we actually know?
It's extremely unclear still what caused the blackout, and there is something of a political blame game initiating. We are also seeing an intense discussion about the merits of different power sources. Spain and Portugal are big renewables producers. French ministers were saying yesterday, well, if they used more nuclear power, perhaps that wouldn't have happened. The Spanish Prime Minister has firmly rejected that, saying actually even nuclear power couldn't help us get this restarted. We were relying on a lot of hydro. The Spanish power grid operator has said that this is absolutely not a cyber attack from their point of view. They say there was a massive drop-off in power supply. What caused that is becoming a key area of investigation. It is unclear. The Spanish Prime Minister, Pedro Sanchez, is not ruling out a cyber attack.
And in the absence of concrete answers, what are the authorities doing to make sure there isn't a repeat of this?
Well, that is the big question, is whether it can happen again. We have heard energy analysts saying that this could indeed happen again. This was, one of possibly the only big power cut in the era of green electricity, certainly the largest that anyone can remember. There has been an ongoing debate about the viability of European grids, whether they are having sufficient amounts of investment in them, particularly now that we are seeing these new sources of power come online. Some analysts suggesting that, you're trying to operate a Ferrari on a country road, and that sometimes that will result in its own challenges to the system. Whether that was the case here, whether there was a third party's involvement, it still very much remains to be seen.
Bebé.
Heidi Sanchez is speaking with her 1-year-old daughter on the phone, at one point breaking down in tears.
Sanchez was deported last week to her home country of Cuba. She says immigration officials forced her to leave her daughter, a US citizen, behind. The Department of Homeland Security disputes this, saying Sanchez was given a choice of whether to bring the child or leave her behind with a relative. Ted Hessen covers immigration. Ted, this is not the only case like this that we've seen reported. Is what we're seeing here new to previous administrations?
It's not new that you may have a parent facing deportation who has a U.S. citizen child, creating this complex situation. Former Biden officials have said that under their administration, there were more considerations when it came to enforcement regarding parents, especially if they were primary caregivers, and also just humanitarian circumstances. I've spoken to a few former Biden officials who've looked at these cases and said that these are textbook cases that would have deserved some form of relief or discretion if they had still been in office.
What does the White House say?
President Trump took office saying that he wanted to have the most deportations in U.S. history. And it's taken some time to ramp that up. It still seems to be a work in progress for them. But it's something that if it does go forward the way he wants it to, it will be extremely disruptive to families in the U.S., including some of those who have U.S. citizen children. In the cases that we've come across, the Trump administration has said that the parents have had the choice as to whether they would like to separate or remain together. But there have been cases where parents and their attorneys have said that no, they didn't get the choice, that they were told what they have to do. I think as this goes on, and if arrests of people in the country illegally and deportations increase, we're likely to see more and more cases like this.
Our recommended read today takes us to an island paradise deep in the Pacific, which is the front line of a gigantic geopolitical struggle. Palau is where brutal World War II clashes once unfolded, and it is once again on the front line as the US and China contest for control over the Asia-Pacific region. Find out more via the link in the pod description. For more on any of the stories from today, check out Reuters.com or the Reuters app. Don't forget to follow us on your favorite podcast player. We'll be back tomorrow with our daily headline show.